Hello friends and welcome to my YouTube channel. So in this video we are going to continue our game and we are going to add some movement and some animations to our character. So right now we have our character which is still standing on this platform on this tile, and we want to move it using arrow keys on our keyboard. And on Android we are going to move this character using on screen buttons, and Android and iOS both. So to do this for keyboard for PC or Mac, we can let's go to the Animator and make sure that you have all these animations inside your Animator. So this Animator is on our applied on our PT. You can see that we have here Animator component, and in the controller we have our PT controller which is inside our assets folder along with all the animations. So to move the character we are going to open our script, and I have added some variables and some code here that I'm going to explain. So the first thing is speed, and then we have our reference to our animator component so that we can switch between animations. And also we have a float variable translation which is going to get the speed of our movement of our character. So I'm going to show you how this is going to work. So inside our fixed update, you have a update function in your script, so change it to fixed update and make sure that F is capital. And inside to get the uh, movement, or to get the value of left and right button on keyboard, we use input dot get axis raw horizontal. So this will actually return 1 when we are pressing the right arrow key, and this will return -1 if we are pressing left arrow key, and 0 if we are not pressing any key. So you have to remember these three values. So we are storing that in our float variable translation, and then to move our character we are going to use this translate function. So simply write transform dot translate, and this will take a vector3 as an argument. So in vector3 we are going to replace the x-axis with our translation variable. So if the translation is 1, this translate will move our character towards right, and if it is -1, this will going to move it to the left, and if 0, this is not going to move. And we don't want to move our character on y and z axis, so that's why we are putting 0 here. So now the next piece of code that you can see is time dot delta time. So actually if we remove this time dot delta time and speed, if we remove both of these, you will notice that our character will move very fast. So we don't want it to move very fast, so that's why we are simply normalizing the value with time dot delta time. Time dot delta time is almost 0.02, but when you multiply this with 0.02, this whole value, this will become a very small value. So we need another variable to control our speed, to increase our speed. So that's why we have added a float variable called speed, and you can assign it to a different value. If you assign 5, the speed will be more fast. So the animator reference, why we took this reference, I'm going to explain it later, but first let me play this. and see what happens. So as you can see that we can move our character using arrow keys. But there is a problem. We want to play a running animation when we move our character forward or backward. So to do that, we are going to go to this animator, and you can see that I have already added running animation. So if you don't have this, just drag the running animation from your animations folder and drop it right here. Also in the parameters, I have added a parameter called speed, which is a float parameter. So you can click on this little plus button and create a parameter like this and name it speed. So I have already done it, so I'm going to remove it. And we can make a transition from idle to running. So when do we want it? When our speed is, when our character is moving. So we know that when we move our character, the translation variable will be either 1 or -1. So 1 when we move right and -1 when we move left. So now we are going to put a condition on this transition by clicking on this line, and you can see that here we have a condition. So I'm going to add a condition. So select this speed variable that is here, and the condition is when speed is greater than 0, we are going to transition from idle to running, because it means that we are moving forward. But when we move left, the value of speed will be -1. Translation value will be -1. So how do we handle this? So in here, so just put this line of code, this piece of code. So in here we are going to check if translation is greater than 0 or translation is less than 0. So it means that we are moving our character, and we are going to set the speed parameter that we can access using anim.setFloat. So anim is our reference to animator controller, and we are going to put 1. So this one will actually received by this speed parameter right here. So when the speed is 1, we are going to, so the speed is greater than 0, so this will transition from idle to running. So now in here we are checking if translation is 0. So definitely we want to go back from speed running animation to idle animation. So we are going to again make a transition from running to idle, and we are going to say if the translation is 0. So we are going to add a condition, but in here you can see that we only have two values: either speed is greater than 0 or less than 0. There is no equal to condition. So to handle that, what we can do, we can say that if the speed is greater than 0 point, or we can say that it is less than 0.01 and greater than -0.01. So the value will be approximately equal to 0 or nearly near 0. So if this happens, we want to transition back from running to idle. So save that, and in here we can check that if translation is equal to 0, it means that we are not moving, so we are going to pass 0. So this 0 will actually fall between these two values, and we will transition back from running to idle. Now save it, go back to game, and I'm going to simply make this tile a little big, so I'm going to duplicate this tile and put it right here. So now if I play this game and using my arrow keys, you can see that we can now, when we move our player is playing animations, but there is a small delay in playing the animation. So to fix that, we are going to select our transition and make sure that has exit time is unchecked. So uncheck both uh, from both these transition. So has exit time, and basically what it does is, if let's say idle animation is of 5 seconds, so if has exit time is checked on this condition, so it will play this animation for 5 seconds and then transition from idle to running. But we don't want that. When we want it to immediately transition from this state to that when our speed parameter changes. So that's why we are going to uncheck has exit time, and now you will notice that our animation will be much more smoother. Now there is another problem here. When we move left, our character is not facing towards left direction. So to do that, we are going to make use of this sprite renderer, and we have a property called flip, and it has two options, x and y. So if we check the x, you can see that now our character is facing towards left. So we are going to manipulate this property, change this property using our script. So we need to detect when our player is moving left, or in other words, if we are pressing the left arrow key, we need to flip this x. So for that, I have a function called turn player. So in here we are checking if translation is less than 0. It means that we are moving left, because when we press left arrow key, input dot get x is raw will return -1, and which will be stored in translation. So if it is -1 means less than 0, we are going to get the reference of sprite renderer, which is this component sprite renderer, and we are using its property called flip x, and we will make it set it to true, and otherwise if it is greater than 0, it means that it is 1, then we are again going to make it false to face our character towards right direction. Now we are going to copy this turn player and call it on in our fixed update function. Now let's go back and play this again. Now you can see that we are moving left and right. So if you are seeing any delay, this is due to the frame rate of this video. Otherwise the character is moving very smoothly. So that's it for this video. I will see you in my next video.